Hi, this is Rosemary Armeo, and this is On the Brink. We have a special Oscar edition today with emphasis on Barbie, who's a particular pet of mine. I'll have two interesting people to begin with. One is Jim Getz. I knew him when he was a copy editor and then a reporter, and then he moved on to be an environmental lawyer. But through all of that, he's had a huge love and appreciation and an expertise in films and especially script writing. So I've asked him to come and talk about the Oscars. And I've brought along Patricia Nugent. She is a writer, a feminist. She heads an equality project for the League of Women Voters in Saratoga County. And I'm going to start with you, Patricia, because you had a celebration of Barbie even before the Oscars last night. Can you tell us a little bit about what we did up in Clifton Park?
Yes, and thanks so much for being there with us, Rosemary. We scheduled a program called Baffling Barbie, Feminist Friend or Foe. And that came about because I was with a bunch of friends and this heated debate started up, and it seemed like nobody was neutral about Barbie. They either loved her or hated her. And Rosemary, it made me think that that's true of all provocative women, right? Like nobody's neutral about you, Rosemary.
That's true. That's true.
And so Barbie is right up there. So that debate among feminist women that I respect really surprised me. And so we decided to broaden our audience and broaden the topic. And so, we hashed it around. Was she good for young girls? Was she a bad role model? We weren't conclusive, I don't think, but almost everyone I've spoken to since has said Barbie has a deeper meaning for them now than
after the program where we talked about her. Yes. Jim, you went to see the movie, and you're not a woman. You are a film lover. So what did you think of it?
I thought that it was very cleverly done. I can't remember if I discussed with you or somebody else, but I think in the hands of somebody other than Greta Gerwig, it could have been either a dud or a disaster, or it could have been too straightforward and literally like on the nose. I think that between her and Margot Robbie, what they did with it was inventive and clever, and it was, it had the feminist message, and it talked about the patriarchy and so on and so forth. But I personally didn't feel like I was being hit over the head with a sledgehammer about it.
You're not like Ben Shapiro, who went on and on about what a terrible movie it was.
No, and in contrast, I'll get my dig in at Poor Things. I think Barbie accomplished, in my opinion, what Poor Things did not, or was trying to do in some very strange way, and did not. I did not see the latter picture as a celebration of feminism.
No, definitely not.
I could be missing something. I'm sure a lot of people will say I am missing something, but and I also read somebody said about Barbie today where it was the only movie they went to see in the theater all year, because they're tired of going to movies where people get shot up, beat up, darker intrigue movies. And if you think about it, it really was kind of an exceptional movie in that regard. It was
except for the baby dolls being smashed at the very beginning, which we talked about. We talked about quite a lot at the meeting. Pat, do you remember one of the panelists talked about how liberating it was that you saw a little girl acting violently, not nice, not sweet, but like a little boy, basically.
Yeah, given permission to express anger or disgust or whatever. And I laughed. I mean, that was the opening of the movie, and it set a tone for me where there was something vicarious going on inside of me watching that, and it was almost representational of the rage that has been building up in my life towards
Yep.
the patriarchy.
Right.
So that kind of captured it. But
It
then,
did.
Rosemary, wasn't it interesting that woman at the very end who said, feminists have been accused of hating babies, not wanting to have babies, breaking up families, the feminazi kind of thing. So at the very end, most of the people I would say in the room loved the opening scene. It didn't matter if they were moms or not. There was something in that scene that was powerful for them. But then that one woman at the end said,
Yep.
that's how Rush Limbaugh painted women
Yep.
as being these horrible,
Angry,
violent,
destructive, scary
dangerous,
people. Yep. Yep,
dangerous,
it's true.
right?
Well, many people have said that maybe the most political thing that happened was the snub by the Oscars of the two women who made that movie really possible, and that was the actress and the director. Ryan Gosling, oh my God, he was amazing last night. I'm a big fan now. If the patriarchy looked like that all the time, I'd be all right with it.
He
But
became a heartthrob last night.
he
I know.
really did. I liked his wife who sent him a note and said, "Get home, the babies need to be put to bed," reminding him of his duties. But at any rate, did you regard it as a snub? Should they have gotten at least nods? Jim, let me ask you first. You saw all the movies too, so you can judge
Yeah.
it. Were they left out? Was it bad they were left out?
I think that Greta Gerwig certainly should have been nominated. I don't know. I'm not dissing Margot Robbie's performance at all. I'm not sure how much we talked about her being like a force behind getting the movie made too.
Right.
So I'm I'm just not sure how much that should be in consideration to say just her performance. But um, at the end of the Oscars last night, they had this I don't know what you call it, not a disclaimer, but they had something up that was on the screen for a very long time, and it described like the process, and it basically said anybody in the Academy can vote for Best Picture, but the people
Right.
who vote within the categories are the people within those categories. So you
So you
have
mean like it's only directors who get to pick best director?
that's how I understood the thing that was there at the end.
We're listening to Jim Getz, who is a lawyer, a former journalist, and an aficionado and an expert kind of on films and script writing. And he's talking about how the snub of Barbie actually occurred. Go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, so if it's true that people within the category, such as directors choose the director nominees, is true, which is how I understand it, and then anybody in the Academy can vote on the nominees. What does that say about her fellow directors not nominating her? And going back to kind of what, or circling back to kind of what I said at the beginning, for me, best director is somebody like without that person has a singular vision, and what was their vision and how well did they execute it? And again, you can see what kind of vision she had for that movie, and she executed it. So why she did not get nominated is a mystery to me. Should Margot have been nominated? I don't know. You're looking at only 5 people can get nominated. And boy, the competition was pretty tough last night.
Yeah,
so.
I felt less bad about Margot Robbie. I thought she was fantastic, but so were those other 5 women who did get nominations. I could have picked out one other of those directors and put Greta Gerwig again. It was extremely original. Patricia, do you have any problems seeing why she was excluded by fellow directors?
Well, I thought Jimmy Kimmel called it out in the very beginning, right? When he made the cracks about those 2 women not getting nominated, and there was kind of this sad hush coming over the audience, and he said, "Whoa, wait a minute. You voted on this. Don't act like this was done by someone else."
Right.
I thought that was very powerful, and that really drove it home.
Right.
And so, who's voting on the best director? Men. Other men are voting for who should be nominated. Majority are men. So I think that I really watched it last night feeling very sad. Feeling very sad that how representational of the culture we have, that there it all was. And it's the most talked about movie. It was the biggest grossing movie, right? The largest grossing. And what? And too bad,
Yeah.
and with Oppenheimer, we've got a beef about Oppenheimer, but someone took a book and made it into a movie. Certainly a challenge I could never ever do, but the raw goods were there. With Barbie, she took a doll and made the doll into a movie that wasn't just a cartoon superficial thing. I think you have to watch it twice to get the subliminal message about feminism and women's role in this culture. But I think, did an amazing job using a storyline to drive home a really important cultural message about where we are right now.
You're listening to Patricia Nugent, who is an official working and a feminist working with the League of Women Voters. We're going to be back in a minute. I am excited to tell you about a new partnership for our podcast. Hudson Mohawk Magazine will be running a weekly excerpt from On the Brink on its broadcast starting this week. You can listen to this volunteer-produced local news hour at WOOC, that's 105.3 FM. Or, of course, you could go online, as you can with everything these days. Hudson Mohawk Magazine aims to provide sanctuary for the discussion of topics that affect our communities. And I like to think that we can add to that discussion, so please look for it. We also have a new sponsor this week that I am very excited to tell you about. It's Nature Logs. This is a joint effort by the very talented husband-wife team of Scott and Denise Hackard Stoner. They're an Albany couple. I want to hate them because they're just so amazingly talented, but I just can't, and you won't be able to either. They take amazing photographs, and they also write beautifully about nature, especially birds, but also insects, plants, solar eclipses. They teach and exhibit widely in the area. They also have prints, note cards, slide presentations, all offered for sales. The Stoners right now have an exhibit and a print sale going on at Colony's William Sanford Public Library. It continues through March 26th. Totally worth the trip. You got to try it. And you can also go to naturelogs.com online to see all of their gorgeous work. I have to spell nature logs for you. It's an unusual word. naturelogues.com. That's the Stoners. Check it out. Hi, this is Rosemary with On the Brink, and we're talking with Jim Getz and Patricia Nugent about the Oscars in general and up to now Barbie in particular. But Jim, let me start with you on a whole different thing. Why do we care about the Oscars, about movies, about the whole industry? Maybe we're talking about it with this whole podcast, and we've related the movies to what's happening in our real lives. But why do you think the movies just attract the attention that they do?
Well, I think, like they're a huge part of our culture, like, music or sports, or, they're essentially, a trivia category in a way. Um, and, they're also historical. They go back now. We're coming. It was 96 96 Oscars, and so we're coming up on the centennial here pretty soon. And there's a way of comparing going back over through time, you know, what the culture was like, you know, and it's a distinctly American culture. You know, this is for better or for worse, you know, this is not the Golden Globes with the Foreign Journalists Association and so on. And that's why their picks are somewhat different sometimes and so on. And it was also the first, and that's what, you know, it has the oldest. Um, so I think we care for that reason. I also think, um, you know, people who really, you know, love the movies or whatever, what they want to see is um, what I can't remember. I had some notes here. It was um, one of the presenters was talking about for Best Actor. Oh, it's Brendan Fraser was talking about Jeffrey Wright's performance in American Fiction, and he used the phrase "elevate the craft," and that to me is in 3 words summarizes what the Oscars are supposed to be about. They're supposed to be, uh, a, if not a celebration, a recognition of people today and in the past who have elevated the craft of making movies. And it's, you know, for people who think that the movies are too hoity-toity or lefty liberal or don't have they're really all the people that it takes, hundreds if not thousands of people it takes to make a movie means it's much more about being a craft than being an art.
That is so high-minded. That is so high-minded. I watch the Oscars to see what women are going to fall off those ridiculous things they call shoes and what kind of gap will be made. And this Oscar was like, it was very smooth and normal. There was no, you know, envelope gate. There was no mistaken mixed up names. Remember when John Travolta mixed up the winner's name? It was pretty normal. So Patricia, let me move to you. I guess one controversy sort of was Lily Gladstone didn't win, another woman. And she would have been, had she won, the first Native American to win an award for Best Actress. She lost out in a surprise loss. Did you feel bad for her? Should we feel bad?
I
Is
did
she
not,
another,
because she won the
the Globe,
Golden
yeah,
Globes,
Golden
right?
Globes.
Yeah,
She
so
did.
I didn't. I kind of felt like one award maybe is enough to feel great about what you did. And no, I did not feel that. I haven't seen that movie yet, though. I've resisted it because it looks terribly sad, and it's too
Yeah,
close to.
that's gonna be a hard one. That's gonna be a hard one to watch. I have not seen that one either. How do you feel about this idea that's being floated to compress the categories instead of best actress, best actor, it would just be best actor, either gender. Same with the supporting actor roles. You think that would be fair?
Your friends of mine who are actresses like to be called actors. And I find that interesting. They call themselves actors. I think it's because actresses is kind of seen as diminutive. And so, but again, I don't know. It's kind of like girls, to use Jim's analogy, girls playing boys sports. Will they have the chance to fairly compete, or the man's world of movie making, will that put up some barriers to wins?
And one last question, then I'll move back to Jim. Do you have any feeling that as we've emphasized diversity and inclusion, that awards are being given for reasons other than craft?
Well, of course, in this paranoid culture that we're living in, there's always room to assume that, the politics behind it all. But I can't say that I have enough of an inside scoop. Jim might, but I don't. I'm always suspicious, I guess, as to why that person and not this person, and what criteria are we using. But I do want to get my licks in about Oppenheimer before we close out. So
Oh, yes, I know you have a thing about it, so
you can
go
tell me
ahead.
when.
All right, I'll bring you back in a minute. But Jim, let me move to you for a minute. How about you? Diversity and inclusion is just a real sensitive issue in our culture right now. And anybody who gets an award who is from a minority right now gets that unfair burden of, oh, you only got it for this reason. Is there any way around it? I mean, some of the I can't. Anybody who has ever gotten these awards are already at such a high level just to even get the nomination. Is
Right.
it fair? Is it speak to that?
Well, they have behind the scenes, and I don't have the details on this, but there's been, they have behind the scenes um, diversified the academy. So it's not just a good old white boys club um, like it was for decades and decades. How that's playing out in what we see in front of us, is there a cause and effect? Is it our only correlation? I don't know. But again, if you go back to who's doing the nominating, it's within the category. It's sort of like with the actors, it's almost like the Screen Actors Guild Awards or whatever. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
Or whatever. So you would have to think that an actor would know best what goes into the craft. Same with the writer, same with the directors, and so on. But again, the makeup of the academy is still going to determine in large part what's going on with that. But the other part of it is after the nominations come out, and they have that early morning thing where they all come out. And I don't understand this part of it either, but it's politics, but it's not racial or gender politics. It is the politics of salesmanship, where these various films and so on go around. And I don't know whether they wine and dine, but once the nominees are out there, the forces for selling them to the academy are sort of like, as I understand it, unleashed. And so sometimes the people, the best, whatever, the winners, there's been criticism that that's due to the sales campaigns directed at the academy rather than, and what you said a minute ago is like the consolation prize is to even be nominated is,
it's a big honor.
It's a big honor. Think of all just in America, the hundreds and hundreds of movies that come out every year, and obviously not all of them aspire to be Academy Award winners, but to be in just the top 5 of anything when hundreds and hundreds of people could be competing against you is
pretty amazing. I have to interrupt you, Jim, because you have a theory I want you to talk a little bit about, which is that some categories are missing. We talked about animal trainer, Messi last night, the dog that was in his seat of honor. Are there other categories? Talk a little bit about that.
I don't know if it's a category per se. I mean, I do think what you said was, best animal performance / best animal trainer might be considered. They did the stunt homage. Is there a stunt category? I don't really know.
I don't think so.
Under the technical ones, but the one that gets brought up, I think, most often is, or in my mind, is the comparison between the Golden Globes and the Oscars is the Oscars. There's no best comedy or musical. And the last comedy to win an Oscar was Annie Hall in 1977.
Oh, wow.
If
I did not realize
American
that.
Fiction had won, it would have, it's a quasi comedy, I guess. It's a comedy drama. It would have come close, but the old adage, about being on stage, death is easy, comedy is hard. And, comedy doesn't get its due, perhaps, from the Academy. Everything is, so serious because it's the Academy. So I don't know about, and I also don't know about if they're going to do it. And maybe it's because there's so few musicals, but I don't know about lumping comedies and musicals into the same category because there's dramatic musicals.
Yeah.
So I
There
think
are there
that's
are there are some people, not actors, who say the whole idea of this best of the Oscars is kind of illogical, and for the reasons you're talking about. How can you compare a comedy with an Oppenheimer, a Barbie with an Oppenheimer? How can you compare, a comedy or a musical with a drama about life and death? And best movie, best actor, the same thing. It's apples and oranges, and yet it's so ingrained in us. I mean, we always talk about if you could only read one book, or what's your favorite story ever. That's we do it all the time, but it is a little illogical. We're running out of time. I want to conclude with Pat, who has you have a snit with Oppenheimer, and I want to hear about it.
Well, I'll be quick about it. And it's really not with the movie so much as that movie, above all others, I think this year had the opportunity to call out the issue of nuclear war and how this whole world is on the brink. The doomsday clock is closer than it's ever been to midnight. And here is a movie that was made very, very popular, spread all over the place, the message. They had a big issue in Japan as to whether they would release it and when they would.
Right.
And yet only last night, the only one who said anything about the need to work for peace was, and I can't think of his name.
Jonathan Glazer.
Well,
From The Zone. He's the
no,
one who did the Holocaust movie.
Martin
Cillian Murphy.
Downey Jr., Robert Downey
Oh,
Jr.
Robert Downey. Yeah, you're right.
said, this is for all the peacemakers.
Right.
And interesting guy to be the one saying that, given his interesting history. But, for Christopher Nolan and for all the people who were up there, no one drove the message home. Someone said, for better or worse, it was Downey again, really, this unleashed something that we will forever live with. And so part of why I enjoy the art and the craft is because I do see it as having the bully pulpit for the creative expression of what has happened or what needs to happen in this world.
Please listen to On the Brink in full on Apple, YouTube, Google, Spotify. Oh, just think of another platform, and we're on that one too. We are everywhere podcasts are. And also like us and subscribe to us, please. That is free. Subscribers make sponsors love us, and then we get more opportunity to do more shows. I have a big announcement, an important one for all you pie and donut lovers. The Apple Barn and Country Bake Shop is reopening after that long winter for the 2024 season. April 20th is the date. Route 7 near Bennington is the place. This year, in addition to the traditional amazing baked goods that they've always had and that they're known for, the Apple Barn is planning a series of festivals, one every month. It's going to start with a celebration of maple in April and of moms in May. You can find out more, like me, just drool over all the pictures of baked goods at theapplebarn, all one word.com. On the Brink is brought to you by the Donna Frank team of luxury property specialists at Berkshire Hathaway Blake Realtors. Donna is an old friend. I love her. She is known for her people skills, her energy. She's also known for her amazing photography, but that's a whole different story. Find out about her if you have anything or any interest in buying, selling, investing, or researching property. Her team, almost like every year, clockwork, wins the multi-million-dollar sales awards. You can find out more at DonnaFed, DONAFED, @gmail.com. I want to bring in a special guest right now. It's Kate Cohen. She lives in Albany, but her influence is much wider than just this area. She is an author. She writes very knowledgeably about religion or lack thereof. And she also is a columnist for the Washington Post. And something she wrote this past week caught my attention. I've read it. I've recommended it to everyone that I can recommend to, and I want to get her to talk about it now. She rewrote America Ferrera's famous speech from Barbie. How did that happen, Kate?
I really come up with a lot of my columns because I just have an emotional reaction, and I'm trying to figure out what that emotional reaction comes from. So I felt I enjoyed Barbie, but it also enraged me.
The movie
in
did.
some
You're
ways.
talking about
the movie.
the movie.
I saw the
enraged.
movie. I mean, well, I should say that my daughter insisted that I see it because it enraged her, which was interesting because I think she had a different reaction from seeing it in the movie theater, and as a very progressive feminist herself.
How old is she, Kate?
She's 18.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Feeling I don't know, maybe not dismayed. In the theater where she saw it, people, cheered at the Barbie speech, the big speech that America Ferrera makes about what it's like to be a woman and the contradictions about life as a woman. And I think for my daughter, and then for me to a lesser extent, because I saw it by myself and I didn't have that dual experience of having people around me experience it, which makes a difference, I think. There was a sense of that there was something missing from the speech, that it was fine for me within the context of the film itself, but outside in the real world, it's not just about how women feel or the different ways that they are conflicted about their lives or the different expectations on them. The problems we face are external, they are societal, they are political, they are urgent. And the patriarchy that we face is much less playful and adorable than the one that is pictured in the movie. I mean, of course it is, and that's fair. I don't think that the movie needed to be all things, but I wanted to make that point. So I'm in a lovely position. The editors at the Post really run with almost everything that I say I'm interested in doing. And they were very excited about the idea of writing an alternate version, let's say, an adaptation of the Barbie speech. I was very clear, honestly, that I didn't want to correct it. I wasn't saying that it was bad in itself. I was just saying that as a political statement, as something that feminists could really rally behind, which is how people were talking about it.
Right.
It lacked specifics. It lacked a sense of the external world.
If I can interrupt, one thing you wrote struck me, which was that the idea in Barbie was that just calling out the patriarchy to realize what they were doing to us would be enough. There would be realization, the whole world would wake and everything would change. And in reality, that's not how it works.
That's not what happened. I mean, in fact, that line in the movie, when Barbie says that, and it's sort of like by naming, this, I don't know, what does she say? I have to look at it, but sort of by naming the patriarchy, you break the spell.
Right.
When that line in the movie happened, I laughed out loud. And honestly, Greta Gerwig is a brilliant woman, and I'm not putting it past her to have meant that both seriously and also kind of like ironically within the movie.
Exactly.
Like, isn't it adorable to think that this would be the case, that you could just say it and then boom, it's all done.
It's all fixed.
It's all fixed. On the other hand, as I think I say in the column, I, as a writer, as a columnist, I have to believe a little bit of that. I have to believe a little bit that it makes a difference to sort of point things out and have people realize things, and that at least is the beginning of a chain reaction or of a series of events that could, as I say, help us get our reproductive rights back. Yeah.
Right. In point of fact, the movie just caused an outrage among, as I've said, white male conservatives. Ben Shapiro has this 42-minute rant about
Really?
what Drek Barbie is. It's just unbelievable on YouTube. And that was with what is really, compared to what you wrote, a watered down version of the angry woman's speech. Have you gotten a reaction? You're very woke in this column. Oh my goodness, you talk about rape and reproductive rights and violence, and you hit all the issues.
Unequal pay. You know, when I sat down to do it, I had this great idea. What was a great idea? I'll do an adaptation of the Barbie speech. I'll put politics back in it. I sat down to do it, Rosemary, and it was like, what? Where do I even begin?
I know. You have plenty of material.
There's plenty of material. It's already twice as long as the original speech. I didn't want to make it unbearable, but there's so many topics to get to, you know, from my maternal mortality rates to you know, the lack of a social safety net, to domestic violence, the fact that, you know, men are killing women, you know, women are just shockingly likely to be killed by their domestic partners,
and the whole idea that equality now means we have to feel sorry for men, even though the numbers overwhelmingly are that women are hurt in these relationships.
Absolutely. We're not done with that yet. But yes, to answer your question, I don't know, frankly. I don't read the comments on my column. No, I do not. It's done. We then made a video of it. I don't know if you've seen.
I saw the video.
Yep. And it seems the reaction seems very positive. There've been a couple of, you know, negative things. I sort of scanned quickly because the Post wants me to engage. So I sort of scanned quickly to look for things. There were a couple of actually anti-Semitic, comments, which surprised me. And then also it's tearing up TikTok right now. So I haven't. Yeah, it is. It's fantastic.
I think like America Ferrara, you hit a nerve.
Well, thank you. And I think I hope to do this with the piece, and I think it worked. But I think even the people who love that are responding to what I wrote. You know, they love that, and you know, you can love both. You can enjoy the Barbie land feminism, you know, the feminism that looks good in a jumpsuit or whatever. and then also be serious about it, you know, and be inspired to vote and be inspired to critique you know, real life today. So I'm sorry.
I'm going to attach you know, a version, your TikTok version, to our website.
Oh, good.
Because I want more people to see it. It deserves to be seen. Am I putting you on the spot if I were to ask you to read some of it or part of it? Or, oh my goodness, pick your favorite part? Pick your baby?
My baby. I'm sorry, Rosemary, you want me to listen to the sound of my own voice? That would just be awful.
You could read it. You could read
no,
words.
I'm joking. Let me just find it. It is literally impossible to be a woman. You can vote and you can own property, and mostly you're equal to men in the eyes of the law. And it kills me that you still don't have equal power. You have to be thin, or else you will actually be paid less. And if you're not thin, then you have to try to be thin, no matter that trying to be thin kills thousands of girls and women every year. You have to stay pretty for men, but if you are pretty and you get raped, 1 in 5 American women are victims of rape or attempted rape at some point in their lives, then it was probably your fault. If you're not pretty, then it couldn't have been rape, because who would even want you? But it was rape, of course. And if that rape results in a pregnancy, your state might compel you to carry that baby to term, using your body again without your consent. I'll stop there.
Pretty good. That's pretty powerful, I must say. Let me
It just goes on.
It does. As I say, we will print a link to the
Great.
entire thing because it deserves to be appreciated.
Thank
Did you watch the Oscars last night?
Sure. I love the Oscars.
And did you feel like Margot or Greta, or actually America didn't win either? Did they get snubbed?
No, I don't. I mean, I think I thought I didn't think they got snubbed. I was really pulling for. I loved the Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
So I was very happy that it won what it won, and I was happy that Glazer made a speech.
You should explain what that is. He
Oh, sorry. He was the director.
Yep.
Yes, Jewish director of the Zone of Interest, which is an astounding work of art, I believe, about the Holocaust. And he made a speech about the idea of, how do we deal with being a bystanders, basically, or the dehumanization of people, especially with regard to the occupation and the, both October 7th and then the bombing of Gaza. So he really went for it in terms of his plea, and he completely earned it. I mean, I think everybody has a right to political statements. I am not one of those people who believes otherwise, but he completely earned it with that movie. I mean, he his investigation of sort of the nature of being a human being adjacent to and or responsible for atrocities is just incredible. So so I was glad for that.
He's taking quite a bit of heat for that today.
Is he?
His remarks have basically been misinterpreted as his saying he rejected his Jewish background, and that's not at all what he said.
That's not what he said.
Not at all. And people are defending. Wait, listen to the whole thing. So
no, he was rejecting the use of that.
Exactly.
But it was a little awkwardly phrased, so I see how that might have happened, but it was powerful, and I don't know. So I was happy for that. I thought Ryan Gosling was fantastic, amazing in the movie.
Patriarchy was all about. He was. If Patriarchy were all about Ryan Gosling, I'd be a lot happier about it.
So so I and they were having a great time. It seemed like it was just I enjoyed the show, and I really enjoyed I enjoyed Kimmel's. I was grateful for him to bringing up the labor issues.
Yes, he did. He did a good job with that.
He did a good job.
I also liked him bringing up Trump at the end.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was
political as well.
Yeah, no, so I enjoy it because I think I was, I think that Americans tend to try to separate politics as this like other separate thing that is in what happens in DC or happens, at the Capitol, and they don't think of it as part of their lives. So I really love it when there's events like this and people kind of make it clear that politics are a big part of everything that happens, what movies get made, and what these people get paid, and So I love the Oscars every year. I always find it a fascinating, rich text.
I want to thank you very much. You've been listening, my listeners, to Kate Cohen. She's an amazing columnist and author, and we will have her back on. I just have her for a few minutes tonight, but I really appreciate your making time for me. So it turns out Pat didn't get it exactly right. The Oppenheimer Oscar winner who spoke out for peace was not Robert Downey Jr., it was Cillian Murphy. but you still get the point. Barbie skewed the gender inequity and unfairness of our society as a way to urge reform, and Pat liked that. Oppenheimer did not really use its powerful bully pulpit to urge an end to war or to take a look at the arms race. I think that's a good point, and I would like to end this episode with a toast to the filmmakers and actors who take us away from our daily life, sure, but who also open our eyes to what's really going on, how we got here, and what we need to do about it all. Often better than journalism, movies can show us ourselves and also what we could be. The League of Women Voters up in Saratoga County asked me to do a small presentation on Barbie, feminist friend or foe. It was well timed, of course, with the nominations at the Oscars, but it also fits in with the League's efforts to get New York State voters to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. It would not go, of course, into the national constitution, but into the state constitution, and it will be on the ballot in November. So they asked me to speak, and here's like a sampling of what I had to say. Okay, so you probably think I'm anti-Barbie, right? I obviously am not a fashionista. If you've seen me, you would know that. If anything, I would be the elderly, misshapen Barbie. So that doesn't matter to me. I don't even really think I played with the dolls that much. Barbie came out in 1959. By that time, I had moved past dolls and was sort of headed towards boys as my occupation. And I really hate the whole idea of bimbos and blondes and only liking women for their appearance. But you're wrong. I can't really hate Barbie, raging feminist that I am. When the League asked me this, I went on my Facebook and I told people what I had a Barbie project and could they please tell me about playing with their Barbies. And something like 200 people did exactly that. It was really eye-opening. I hope you'll see that. And now I get the negatives about Barbie. I'm inclined to them, as I've already said. She does, in a way, if you think about it, perpetuate unrealistic beauty standards, those flawless features, that thick hair, those boy hips. How does she get those? But that's an awful big burden to put on Barbie. Why is she the one who has to perpetuate realistic beauty standards? What about, Cabbage Patch dolls? What does that say about what we want to look like or should look like or think children should look like? And I remember that in colonial times, girls played with corn husk dolls. That certainly was not an accurate representation of how we looked either. But I can't really dispute that Barbie set unfair standards. My friend David Etlin remembers his daughter pining in the 5th grade for a Barbie, and his feminist wife, my friend Bonnie, said, "No way, she's a bimbo." But at a birthday party, a 5th grade classmate who didn't get the note from mom gave her exactly what she wanted. And Lauren held up her little Barbie and said, "Look, mommy, I got a bimbo." She remembers that. I also have to wonder just how unrealistic Barbie is when we consider Margot Robbie, who played her in the movie and certainly looked just like her, or Taylor Swift for that matter. There's other people too. Tia Leone is another one. I'm going to talk about her in a minute. Elizabeth Chin is an anthropologist who studied Barbie something like 24 years ago. It's amazing how much academic work has been done on this doll. And what Elizabeth Chin found out was that it's not things that people use to get a sense of themselves. You don't get that from playing with the doll. You get it from your relationships, from your mother and your aunts, and from the friends that you played the dolls with. I think that makes sense to me. On TED Talks, you can find a young high school girl talking, Tanya Vidyun. She's an Indian American. And she found that there are all kinds of Barbies. A Barbie, as she says, for literally everyone. And that's Mattel. Okay, they did it for money, not for some sort of grand social purpose. They figured that, all right, if people say they want dolls that look like them, we'll give it to them. And so they did. There's a black Barbie, many of them. There's Latino Barbies, there's freckled Barbies, there's brunette Barbies, there are Down syndrome Barbies, Barbies with hearing aids, transgender Barbies, you name it. I found one in the Middle East, a Palestinian Barbie. Barbie has more than 250 professions in the array that Mattel has turned out. But this young high school student took a look at it, and she found that in 1963, that's when Mattel came out with the first college grad Barbie. There weren't a whole lot of women graduating from college in 1963. In 1972, when Mattel put out its first surgeon Barbie, only 9% of surgeons in this country were women. Same thing I could say about 1990 when the first military Barbie came out, or 1965, Space Barbie. And what this student realized, of course, is that the doll, Barbie, celebrates what women have accomplished, but it also points out where improvement is needed. The doll has been ahead of its time. And you might think that there's more than enough Barbies. There's not. My friend Susanna Sanchez, who is an incredibly talented designer, she works for the LA Times now. She has her own business. She is on a campaign. She's got a petition. Just let me know if you want to sign it. I've got one to send you. She's petitioning Mattel for a Central American Barbie. There are Mexican Barbies. There's a Puerto Rican Barbie. It's not the same, she points out. Central American chicas are different. And she's urged them to make a specialty doll out of the current Miss Universe, who is a woman from Nicaragua. She's got the indigenous features, the dark hair, and there's something to this. Why, when there are so many Barbies, are there still petitions for more? Well, that's feminist. That's a demand by feminists to be seen and to be recognized. I think that's significant. There are other cons to Barbie. She was expensive. She was expensive even at $3 a doll when she first came out in 1959. But the truth is that you can always get a Barbie. Your neighbors will pass them down to you. Your older siblings will. Aunts or uncles who will splurge on birthdays or Christmas or other holidays and get you one. And kids know this. They have a sense of what is their right and what they want, just like they know no matter what the tracks are called in schools, they know who adults think are the dumb kids. And they don't want generic Barbies. They don't want the model put out by Target or by some other company, not Mattel. They don't want the old Barbie, the one with the tiny eyes that were mostly closed. They don't want the Ken with the painted hair. They want the one with the velvet hair. And they want all the clothes and accessories that can get. The one exception to that generic rule, by the way, are the clothes. Again, there's this desire to get a big, giant wardrobe. And homemade counted. I had one person write and say, no one had the clothes that I had. And it wasn't often that I was the one who had something my friends didn't. The reason she had all those clothes was that her mother made them. She took scraps of material and turned them into Barbie clothes. Another woman wrote to me that she woke up one morning and found her community of Barbies right at her head on her bedstand. And they were all in leather, sweaters, jackets, pants, because her mother and her aunt had found a piece of faux leather and spent the night making clothes for her. Yes, there's materialistic tendencies in all this to amass more Barbies and more clothes, but don't forget the community here, the giving from others, the sharing of things from their mother. One woman wrote and said to me that she has the wedding dress of her late mother in an upstairs closet, but missing from that dress is a little square, a little hunk that she cut out to make a dress for her Barbie. That's a connection. Connection is feminist. Very important, I think. Okay, there is another con I have to mention because I don't have a good answer for this. Barbie, the movie, and the doll, I think, especially the movie, are all about how perfection is just an illusion, that reality is better. And yet much of the merchandise connected to the movie brought up by Mattel is all about attempts to reach perfection, even though we know it's impossible and not the most desirable. But there's tanning products, nail polish, even cellulite cream now with the Barbie brand on it. So it's like the merchandising kind of does away with the message of the movie. It turns out that in the week after, overnight actually, after the debut of the trailer for the movie Barbie, Google searches for blonde hair dye tripled. What does that say about us? Let me now switch. Maybe it says this. Maybe it says this. I want to switch to Madam Secretary, a TV series that totally was a great role model for women. It's about a person who becomes Tia Leone, who, yes, she does look like Barbie, and she is the Secretary of State and then becomes the first woman president of the United States. And at one point, a magazine does a feature on her, and she is horrified that this feature includes a photo of her with her emphasizing her legs. She's a very pretty woman, of course, and she's horrified by this. Her daughter, who is a fashion designer, doesn't understand why her mother would be upset at being called pretty, as being portrayed as beautiful. And Madam Secretary says to her daughter, you know, it's fun to feel pretty, but when that's the only thing the world is looking for, they miss so much. I want people to talk about what I'm trying to do, not about what I look like doing it. And maybe that's what Barbie is really all about, because she always looks good. But we did, when we played with her, my baby sisters played with Barbie, they were nothing so much as imaginative and creative. They became whatever they wanted to when they were playing with Barbie. One person wrote to me that I used to play royalty and some unfortunate dolls were beheaded. What wonderful memories. But we took them in the pool, we filled them with water and they sank to the bottom. There was glamour, there was murder, there was sex, there was everything. There was no restraint with a Barbie. I have a cousin, Joanne, who still maintains all of her Barbie dolls. She has boxes of them. She shares them now with her 3 daughters, and now she has a granddaughter as well. But her father was an Italian immigrant, and her mother was so strict. They had curfews, they had rules, they had restrictions. And then they played with Barbie, who had none of those. She could wear miniskirts. She could stay out late. She could go clubbing. Joanne didn't even know what clubbing really was. It was just something she couldn't do when she wanted to. I had another friend who wrote and said she had a horrible home life. And she escaped with Barbie. At one point, her Barbie ran away and lived for a year in the corner of her bedroom, away from her crazy family. Yes, she said, Barbie was the me I wanted to be. This is freeing and adventuresome. It taught people how to be themselves. It's very creativity. We have people who wrote and talked about how they became seamstresses, or they became hairdressers, or they became, in the case of a choreographer who wrote to me, artists because of Barbie. Has something to do with the heads. Let me back into this anecdote. People wrote that they decapitated Barbie. Their brothers tortured them by pulling the heads off Barbie. If you had trouble changing Barbie's clothes because you had those stiff arms and legs, you would just pull off their heads and put it onto a new doll, and it would be a new outfit. It was easier than changing it. Something about the heads. Girls always cut off their hair, too, for some reason. Didn't believe their mothers when they said it won't grow back, you know. They would cut it off anyway. But in the case of my choreographer, her cousin had a Barbie, and it lost its head, and the hair was all chopped off. And somehow she got hold of it. And for some reason, she's not exactly sure why, she took that head and put it on a popsicle stick. And she carried it everywhere with her. It became a totem, like for creative, experimental expression. When her father threw it out, she dug it out. She took it to college with her. She did lose it in a move. She was telling another friend about it, also an artist and a creator, a badass, as she says. And that woman got her another Barbie head and put it on another popsicle stick, and she still uses it. It's a symbol. I found that powerful. I found that very powerful. The other thing about Barbie that's really notable is the bond that it makes between and among women. Mothers play with daughters, grandmothers come in on the act, neighbors played together. In my youth, I was too old maybe for Barbie, but our younger sisters did. We all played in as a group, we played with them. This is actually depicted pretty well, the mother-daughter bonding in the movie. I like the story of Sarah Corn Ryder and her daughter Paige. They would spend hours together playing Barbie. They would do fashion shows. They made up parties. They made up life. When Paige outgrew her Barbies, she sold them off so she could buy clothes for herself, not for her Barbie. I bought $15 worth and I gave them to my granddaughter. And so now Sarah, who is my goddaughter, I used to play with her mother. Now, our granddaughter is playing. It went through several generations. I love that about Barbie. And when I play Barbies with my granddaughter, they're real life lessons. They're about agency, not getting married to just anyone, not getting married for the sake of getting married, maybe not getting married at all, and careers and domestic abuse and politics and sex. Nothing is open. In fact, sex is a big thing in play with Barbies, according to the people who I heard from. Girl power. Barbie was the first doll who had a life, and she had sex too. It was another part of that idea that you could throw off the controls of your parents. I had one person who wrote to me. I love this. I have to get the exact words. My Barbies were always naked because the clothes were so hard to put on. I think that's why Barbie got into sex so easily. These genital-less dolls, however, encourage sex exploration and expression. One woman wrote that she learned about, quote, the joys of sex and procreation via Barbie. My slightly older next-door neighbor used Barbie and Ken to illustrate the mechanics. And she was a little confused. She didn't know a lot of the particulars, and she kept mentioning urine rather than semen, but it's really a wonder I didn't grow up to be a nun. Lisa C. wrote to me and said, I have a good Barbie story, including being sent to the principal's office because I drew nipples and pubic hair on mine with a crayon. But what did they expect? Those early Barbies looked very sadomasochistic. Susan wrote that she paired her Barbie with her brother's G.I. Joe, the one with the fuzzy beard. That, by the way, is something else that we need to think about. Ken, and almost everyone I heard from, was widely rejected as a mate or a boyfriend. They liked G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe also did not have genitals, but he did have muscles and big guns. What does that say about women or our culture? So anyway, Susan got G.I. Joe from her brother. And she felt bad, though, that he lacked, that needed equipment for the sex. So she used the wax that her orthodontist had given to cover the wires on her braces. She used that wax to fashion and sculpt him a realistic set of, you get it. Another woman wrote, I'm pretty sure my mother first figured out that I was not straight when she walked in and found me with two naked Barbies stacked and kind of rubbing on each other. And my favorite story comes from my ex-sister-in-law, Diane, who said, I have to read this to you. I've watched way too many movies with my mother, movies where men kissed women just because they wanted to. And Ken was always the aggressor in my doll relationships. Since we didn't really know what sex was, our Ken dolls gave our Barbies alcohol rub-downs. Very sexy. One day I was playing alone in my room, and I must have gotten loud as the voices of the dolls because Ma opened the door and asked me to show her my dolls. Ken had naked Barbie and Midge slung up over his shoulders. His stiff arms were up over his head. That was a way to hold them in place so that he could take them for that rub down he had promised. Ma just shook her head and shut the door. Yeah, Barbie taught us stuff. Transgendered women write that they loved Barbie, but secretly, mostly when they were boys. They love the pink. They love the whole feminine idea, all those beauty standards that I just criticized. They sort of loved, and many in adulthood have collected Barbies. One friend, former student, got a present from friends of a Barbie that they remade in her image, with the asymmetrical haircut and tattoos on the shoulder and the back. Transgendered Barbie. I ended my speech by quoting from Kate Cohen, who wrote a remarkable rewrite of the Barbie speech. You are going to hear that in this podcast, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you.